All right, this is going to be a quick review of the homework assignment that I asked you to do. And basically what I had you do is create a UML diagram based on our Dungeons & Dragons discussion. So we talked about creating a character, we talked about using Dungeons & Dragons because it's a really well-defined system with rules, and that's a great starting point for any programming adventure, is to actually come up with a system that's well-defined, well-documented, and at least somewhat understood. So we basically started by creating a character class, and you start by just writing this stuff down. And I mentioned in class that it's a good idea to do this on a whiteboard. That's why I'm using this electronic whiteboard as your first pass. Now that looks like an E. That's okay. And so really you just want to do this on whiteboard, on a whiteboard, on paper, on something like that. You don't want to get bogged down by software. So we're starting off here, and we're going to go ahead and do our brainstorming session. So it's not that much of a brainstorming session because we've already defined most of this stuff, but as you're going through and thinking of things, it's easiest just to write them down and then transfer that into some other piece of software. That way you don't have any interruption in your sort of your creative flow. So we have our character class, and we have some basic, really basic properties like name. We need hit points in here. We need experience points, which I'm just going to abbreviate XP. And then we have these things that we have to have in here, like strength. If I can get the line on, there we go. Strength. Intelligence, and I'm going to abbreviate the rest of them in the interest of time and frustration with drawing on a piece of glass is not a good time. Sometimes we'll do wisdom, constitution, dexterity, and charisma. And I'm officially out of room. But naturally, on a piece of paper or on your whiteboard, you're going to have more room, so that's all fine. Now we need access modifiers for all of these, and they're pretty much all going to be public properties. There's no reason for any of these to be private. So let's just add our plus signs out to the side. All right, and now we'll go ahead and draw a box around all these. There we go, and that's our first class. Now we don't really have any methods. I just wanted you to get used to the exercise of creating these diagrams and just starting off simple. And we're going to refine this over the next week or so, and we'll make this bigger and badder and stronger and better, and you'll put all kinds of different things in here like inheritance and composition and all these different things. So this is just your starting point, and you're probably going to turn this in a couple of times just so I can gauge how you're doing. So what we want to do from here is we want to take this diagram and transfer it into some diagramming software. That way we can manipulate the diagram a little easier. We can email it to people, we can share it, and if you're like me, you have really terrible handwriting, it might be a good idea to have something that looks like it wasn't drawn by a fifth grader. Not that there's anything against fifth graders out there. So I'm going to switch to my PC because I just happen to have this really great software on my PC, and I also have software on my Mac, but I want to use the free software. I actually paid a little bit of money for my Mac software. I paid like $8 or $9 for it. It's not a lot of money, but the PC software is free. So let me switch to my PC. All right, so here's my PC. I've got this installation going, but I'm a little pressed for time, so I'm just going to move on with the lab. I'm going to show you where to get this software so that you have everything that you need. Let me just move this out of the way. Okay, and the software that I'm going to show you is called Dia. It's spelled D-I-A. And I have sort of a favorite spot where I like to get this. I get this from portableapps.com. So let's go to portableapps.com. There we go. And this is a great site. If you've never seen these tools before, these are really cool. You can basically create a thumb drive and put all of your tools on it and carry them with you. So it's great for students. But I always come here anyway to get a lot of my tools, because the tools that are here, first of all, they're free, and that's always nice. But the thing that I really like about the tools that are here is that I don't have to worry about installation issues. So I know that everything on here is going to be clean. It's not going to have viruses on it. It's not going to have spyware on it. It's not going to have adware on it. It's not going to have any junk in it. And beyond that, if I install things from here, I can actually not really worry about uninstalling. So there's these portable apps, they don't make any changes to your registry, and that's a good thing. That's one of the things that gets cluttered up on a Windows system is the registry. All right, so let's go ahead and look at our apps. You don't need to do the download because that's the whole platform. I'm just going to download the app that I want to use. And so let's see. We're looking for Dia, spelled D-I-A. And it looks like there's quite a few Dias in there. There it is, Dia Portable. It's under Graphics and Pictures. And I'll click Download Now. And I'll pause while that's coming down. All right, so the download is complete. Let me go to my downloads folder. And it's going to look a little weird. It's Dia Portable, and then it's got this .paf. So that's Portable Applications Format .exe. Don't let that throw you off. But if you look at this in Windows Explorer, you'll probably just see that it says Dia Portable .paf, because Windows only shows you the first extension on there and not all of them, which, by the way, is actually really bad. You can actually make a lot of mistakes that way. There's lots of viruses and things like that that can install using this trick. In this case, it's not a trick. So let's click on this, and it will say select a language. And what's going to be different about this, probably wondering why I'm even showing you this, and you know how to install software. This one just works a little bit differently. So I'm just going to go ahead. I don't need additional languages. I'm going to leave that alone. And you'll note where it's going to put it. So it's looking for a relative folder, and most of the time that's just going to put it in downloads. And so that's fine for this. If you want to install it permanently, you might want to give it a different destination. So I'm just going to install it right there in downloads, because I actually have this on my portable apps already, and I don't really need to install it again. I just wanted to show you how it works. So I'll go ahead and do that, and I'll close Explorer. And then when this is done, there will be a folder in my Downloads folder. And there it is. And we gotta wait till it's done. Okay, it's done. So that's where it put it. Now at this stage, you can drag this onto your thumb drive if you want to. You can carry it around with you. You can move this however you'd like to move it. I personally keep everything on my Microsoft OneDrive. And then it doesn't matter what computer I'm on, as long as it's running Windows and I'm logged into it, I actually have access to all my apps, and that's pretty cool. All right, so I'm just gonna click Run Dia so that it runs. And it'll start up. And there is a Mac version for this. It's a little bit hard to find. And this is really written for Linux. So it's really easy to find in Linux. Any package manager will get you here in Linux. And then there's this PC version. And then there's the Mac version, which is, again, that's hard to find. And it's kind of hard to compile for the Mac, which is why I suspect it's hard to find. Okay, so we have our diagram here. The only thing that's tricky about this for first-time users is the symbols. So if you come over here and you see the flowchart symbols, that's a good starting point if you want to make a flowchart. But let's go ahead and click this little drop down here and then select UML. And now we've got all the UML symbols. So now we're good to go. All you have to do is just click the class diagram, which is the very first one. And we just click anywhere out on the canvas, and now I can double click this to edit it. And now all I need is to put in what's in my my diagram. So we've already drawn it out, so we know what's going to go in it. So I'm going to change the name to character. And let's do, we're not going to worry about any of this other stuff. So there's one thing I'll warn you about is this uses a lot of C++ terminology. So we don't say stereotype, we would say superclass. Comment is, well, just a comment. But most of it's really similar. So we talked about abstract classes. We talked about a lot of the things that are in here. And we, instead of properties and methods, they have attributes and operations. So it's the same thing, but we can come over here and create our properties. So we'll create a name property. And at this stage, if you really want to give it a type, you can. But I don't recommend spending a ton of time on that. And then there's a place here where you can actually create a sample value for this. So that's sometimes really helpful. And then if you want to put any sort of documentation, you can put it in here. And then you have your access modifiers here, public, private, protected, and they have implementation, whereas we have internal, but you could easily swap them out. So it's not that hard to figure out what the differences are. You're not going to use internal very often anyway in your diagrams. You're going to use public, private, and protected. So the ones that you need are there. Okay, so there's name, and then we'll do hit points. And we'll do experience points. And we'll do the ones that we need, which are, strength, intelligence, wisdom, constitution, and charisma. And there they are. And then anything else that you want to put in there is fine. Now we didn't really have, I'm going to go ahead and click apply so that I can see my handiwork. And there it is. Now, I was about to say we don't have any methods really at this stage. You can, if you put some in there, that's fine. If you want to throw one in there just so you can see how it works, I'll just create an attack method because we know our character is going to attack somebody because it's Dungeons and Dragons, right? So we'll say attack, it's going to be public. Type is going to be your return type, and inheritance and all this stuff, you can leave these, you can make it abstract if you want to, but we can leave these alone. The thing that you really want to focus on if you have parameters is down here, and that's, we'll click new, and this will give us a parameter, and we'll say attack, I don't know, attack monster or something like that. I'm just sort of artificially making stuff up at this stage so I can show you how the diagramming tool works. All right, so it's making everything for us. Notice it's got our access modifiers over here, and that's perfect. So this is a nice little free tool that you can use, and we can use this to build on our assignments. And if you want to use something else, that's fine. Again, this is free and it's easy to use. But if you want to use something else, if you have a diagramming tool that you like, maybe you have Visio or something along those lines, feel free to use that. I don't really care. We can actually save this out. So you can turn in if I ask you to do a diagram, you can turn it in as a dia file, because obviously I have the software. But you can also come over here and export this. So there's lots of different export formats, and really it just does it based on what you put in as the extension. But you can see what the list is. And obviously I can handle pretty much anything it can spit out. But the ones that you're probably most interested in are going to be probably a ping. That's an easy one. It'll do a JPEG. It'll also do SVG if you want to do a vector graphic format. So all of those formats are in here, and just pick one that you like. You're probably not going to recognize the ones on the side where it says Pixbuff, but just look for the extension, and that's really what it's going to go by. So if I want to make this into a ping, I can say test.ping, and it'll save it out as a ping. And now I've got that. So that's what you would turn in if you didn't want to turn in the dia file. You can turn in the dia file, and that's okay, but If you're using something else you want to export, that's cool too. So that's all fine. That's pretty much your homework assignment. I made it pretty simple. If you got more intricate than that, then good for you. But if you made it this far, then I'm completely happy with your progress so far. So like I said, you want to hang on to this because we're going to build on this as the semester progresses.